morning.
Good morning, everybody. Morning has broken.
We are your consecrated hosts.
Oh, yes, we are. Father Jeff, consecrated by holy orders.
Consecrated by baptism. Jonathan.
It's Jonathan. You're in such a good mood today.
You know.
Spirited and
dressed
Advent-y.
liturgically.
You're all Advent-y.
Yeah.
Yep. Very nice. You had your Mary Blue on yesterday, and now your Advent Purple on today. Very good.
Yeah.
Glad to see that you think these things through.
You know, it helps get me into the spirit.
The spirit of things.
Yeah.
Well, very nice. Very good. Let's see. Today is December 9th, the Wednesday of the week. We're halfway through another week. This December is going to be over. I have not started my Christmas shopping yet, Jonathan.
I am almost done.
Oh. You know, my good friend, he starts shopping in January and is all done by July. It's ridiculous. I hate it. I am not that organized.
With kids, it's a little harder to do something like that because what they want in January or July or yesterday is completely different. You know?
What's the big thing these days? Well, you already talked the dinosaur.
Yeah, they still are
dinosaurs.
I don't know. Joshua's been wanting remote control something.
Oh.
So,
yeah, I remember our remote control was that. So that's always a big Christmas thing.
But, then just yesterday, Joshua says, I still have time to think of Christmas presents. We're like, well, you need to let us know really quick.
Do they write a letter to Santa or go tell Santa?
No,
do they have
normally,
a visit to Santa?
we have the visit with Santa here, the breakfast with Santa, but that got canceled.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure how we're telling Santa, but
might have to write a letter.
We might write a letter.
Or send an email.
But yeah, so
text
but we told Joshua, it's like Santa needs time to be able to get all this stuff too. It's not just, if December 23rd, 24th rolls around and you're like, I want a pony.
Nope.
Well, you're probably not going to get a pony.
You're not going to get a pony.
You might.
If you ask for it now.
Santa's got connections sometimes.
He's got connections, but I think he also knows what Mom and Dad want. And Mom and Dad do not want a pony.
We can't have a pony. So luckily none of them asked for it yet.
That's good.
I think Gemma would ask for a unicorn. She really likes unicorns.
Is she into unicorns already? She's expressing herself?
Oh my gosh. Yep. She sees a shirt with a unicorn on it. She says, Uko.
Uko.
Yeah, something like that. And it's adorable.
Wow. Yeah, unicorns.
Or she sees her dinosaur shirt because she is the Dino Princess, and she
likes dinosaurs
too. Yeah.
I saw this. I was out walking the store the other day on Monday, my day off, and I was kind of going up and down the toy aisles, just seeing if I could find something for if something jumped out at me for my nieces and whatnot, but nothing did. I'm still working on that. But I noticed in the little girls section there was a little dinosaur Tyrannosaurus Rex with hair that can be combed, and it was all. She was quite the little princess dinosaur. Yeah,
I've not seen that, but
apparently there is one. There's something out there for everyone. Crazy, crazy. Well, yeah, I got to get on that. I'm thinking I'm going to be doing most of my stuff online this year, just because time's a ticking. And I don't know when I'm going to go out next.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. I mean, the evils of online shopping.
I know.
But
I know.
It's also the convenience.
There is that. I mean, it is the changing. I mean, it's one of those things. It's the changing way of the world. And even though it tends to favor the big business and the giants, and small business then kind of gets pushed aside and whatnot. I think it's important to support the local and small businesses as much as you can. I think it's important for those small local businesses too to put themselves out there online. Yes. I mean, to utilize those things. I love shopping on Etsy, where you just, basically people from their homes are making stuff, and it's usually pretty good, and it's handmade, and it's one of a kind, and I love that. You know me. I don't want the carbon copy, just print it out, stamp it, so that's there's ways to do it.
There are, and I've bought from multiple online shops this Christmas season.
Yeah.
So
cool. Did you get my present yet, Jonathan?
I don't know. Am I getting you anything?
I don't know if I got you my list yet.
Where do you find coal? I looked at Kohl's, and unfortunately they don't have Kohl's. So, yeah.
Thanks.
It would be really funny at some point to get someone some coal.
You're going to get a big old bag of Kingsford sitting on your desk.
Oh, I don't have a charcoal grill.
I know, it just makes it all the more sad. Because that's what Christmas is about.
Being sad.
Ruining your day and making you sad.
Scrooge.
Speaking of ruining your day, today is the feast of Juan Diego.
Why did that ruin my day?
Because Our Lady kept ruining his day.
I guess so. If you want to transition that way, fine.
I thought it was a pretty sweet transition. Our Lady was, she was a persistent gal back then, and Juan Diego wanted nothing to do with it.
No. But most people that are called are just like, no, not me, Jesus, not me, Lord.
Surely this isn't happening. I'm having a hallucination. It was that Sudafed I took this morning or something.
I'm just a little peasant man.
He was a little peasant man. Juan Diego, a little peasant man in late 1400s, early 1500s, someplace in Mexico. Mm-hmm. Outside of Mexico City, modern-day Mexico City, I think.
Not too far.
Tepeyac.
Yeah.
Tepeyac. That's where he was from. And I think he was like off to visit a sick uncle, or I'm not exactly sure. He was doing something. He was out on the road doing something. And as he's walking along, minding his own business, here this woman appears to him.
Yeah.
And she looked like his people.
Right.
I mean, she was Juan Diego was an indigenous Mexican, and she also had the features of an indigenous Mexican person, and she called out to him, my little one, and he just didn't know what to do with that.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah. So he tried to ignore her.
Mm-hmm.
She asked him, like, I need you to go talk to the bishop and build a church. Mary's into real estate, apparently. She's got lots of frequent flyer miles, and she's into real estate.
She knows how to invest. She knows how to invest.
She jet sets all around the world, and she wants churches built everywhere. So she's quite the gal.
But he said,
can you imagine if she was on Shark Tank? Kevin O'Leary, Laurie Greer, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Oh, I'm sorry, lady. Anywho, what were you saying? Before I put that image in your head?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, she wanted a church.
Yeah, so she wanted a church.
And he was like, I couldn't do that. I'm just this little peasant boy, and who's going to listen to me? And this, so, like, every day he would set out on this little journey. I don't know how many miles or whatever it was.
It's Mexico's kilometers.
I was going to say, but were they using kilometers then?
They're probably using.
They were using like rods or something like that, you know. So he wasn't. He tried to avoid her. So it's like, well, if she's going to appear to me on this side of the hill, I'm going to go on this side of the hill. So he kind of even tried to shake things up. But you cannot outsmart Our Lady, and this is where she keeps ruining his day.
Especially when she could just appear wherever she wants.
Yeah, she's like, oh, he's not coming this way? Hello, Juanito.
But didn't he try to tell the bishop? And he said...
Yes, so finally she convinced him. And so then he does. He goes and tells the bishop, and the bishop was like, you silly boy. No, that would have been me. I would have said, no, I don't believe you. Go away.
So if I come to tell you to build a church?
I want to build a church, but yeah, if you have a vision, Jonathan, I'm probably going to fire you.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, salvation over...
There you go. No, we will. Well. If you can bring me some proof, and that's what the bishop said.
Yeah, bring me some proof.
Bring me some proof, and of course he figured, well, that will brush him off. So yeah, again, Juan tried to avoid Our Lady. She interjected again and said, "Hey, go climb that mountain over there. It's chilly, it's a little frosty, but you're going to find some roses in bloom." Mm-hmm. And why don't you cut some of those roses and take them to the bishop and prove? Because I guess back in the day they couldn't just go to the Hy-Vee floral market and get some roses.
So you couldn't find roses, and especially at that time of year, in bloom.
Yeah, I would imagine like
not been possible.
I don't know what time of year it was.
I don't know either, but at that time of year,
No, we know that. There was no roses blooming. So that was a remarkable thing.
Yeah, and I don't even think roses were native to that place or something like that. So
yeah, I'm not sure. It was all...
Yeah, it was should not have happened.
Should not have happened sort of thing. So he has these roses. He goes back to the bishop, and he's got them all wrapped up in his
tilma.
Tilma. I was going to call it a mantle. If you don't know what a tilma is, it's his mantle. And there's poncho sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And he unfurls them, and the roses go falling onto the ground. And on the tilma...
You'll have to turn in tomorrow.
No. Yeah, on the 12th. 12th is her day.
Yes.
Our Lady of Guadalupe. So there she was, the way she appeared to what's his name? Juan Diego.
Juan Diego.
Yeah. So there she was, imprinted upon his tilma, and you can still see that today. So the bishop was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing," and recognized it to be a miracle, built that church, and now the tilma is on display in the shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City.
It gets millions of people every year.
It's a big city.
It's a huge city, yeah.
Yeah. So it's an amazing story. So the roses, a sign of Mary's miraculous workings. Mm-hmm. So yesterday was the Immaculate Conception of Mary. We've got Juan Diego today. On the 12th, which is Saturday, we'll have Our Lady of Guadalupe. This is like a week of Mary.
I like Mary.
Yeah. Mary Immaculate is the patroness of the United States. Our Lady of Guadalupe is the patroness of the Americas. So this is really our patronal week.
Yeah, this is
our feast week.
This is a good week.
It is. Yeah. All right, Jonathan. Advent treeing.
Advent treeing.
Lo and behold, the symbol is a rose, which is amazing because that totally was not planned.
It was not planned. I don't even know what this rose means.
Well, we'll get into that, Jonathan.
Because it's a candle behind a rose, so there's got to be something with candle or light.
Out?
No.
So we're going through our little Jesse tree here, and we're tracing salvation history through creation and the fall and the covenants with Noah, and then Abraham and Isaac and his many sons, and we've got the history of Israel. But Israel always has this tumultuous relationship with God, and so there's two things that really bind the people of Israel to God and define their relationship: the law and the prophets. Mm-hmm. So this represents one of those. The rose and candle is the rose of prophecy.
Oh,
the prophet's rose. And so it really kind of harkens to the light. The light is representative of the prophets. So the candle, you think about all of the prophets, and they're really just kind of enlightening the people's minds and hearts, calling them back to be faithful. Be faithful to your God. Listen to, do what He asks of you to do.
Yay, we'll do it. Oh, the law is hard. We won't do it anymore. Then there comes a new prophet. Exactly. Follow the law. Do good. Yay, we'll do it. And it's hard.
Yeah, exactly.
And then a new prophet has to come.
Prophecy is always, being stirred up. So the prophets really are lighting the way. They're lighting the way. And the rose, it harkens back to Isaiah's prophecy that when the Messiah comes, the desert will bloom with flowers, which is Mary's prophecy to Juan Diego, that the desert is going to bloom with flowers when they should not be there.
I wonder if that was intentional.
It was just, what I've always thought about with Our Lady of Guadalupe, this is happening, in the early 1500s. And if we think back to the old world, back in Europe, right about that time, the church is under great stress and great strain. The Protestant Reformation is developing. So there's a lot of the church is finding herself about to be torn apart in many different things, and it's almost as if Our Lady just decided, well, I'm going to go start something new and plant the faith firmly over here in the New World. Now, there have been missionaries and whatnot in the New World for some time, but the fact that Mary appears here in the Americas and wants a church built to her honor and to honor her son. I just always said, like, there's a promise there to the new world, that when the church was struggling, it's still coming to birth. There's some new life.
That was in Our Lady of Guadalupe was a huge catalyst for the conversion of many, many, many people.
Absolutely.
And there's still even people who have the devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe, maybe not even that much to Catholicism, but they follow, Our Lady of Guadalupe. So
right.
Very powerful.
Yeah. So that idea of prophecy that lights the way, that sparks something out of nothing. It's kind of an amazing thing. So we look at our reflection here for the symbol of prophecy. Long before Jesus was born, Isaiah the prophet declared and prophesied that God would send a Savior into the world. And we believe that Jesus does fulfill this prophecy. Many names are given to Jesus, and many symbols convey what that means to us. The light symbolizes God's intervention in the world. Think back to creation. Let there be light. Boom. God is in the world. So even in our own liturgical services and whatnot, we use candles around the altar and at the gospel to remind us that Christ is the light and that he is present. The symbol of the rose reminds us of Isaiah's prophecy. The desert shall blossom as the rose at the coming of the Lord. And so we pray. Wonderful Counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, we praise and bless your holy name, Son of David, Branch of Jesse, Emmanuel, Good Shepherd, Light of the world. Guide us and help us, we pray. Amen. The light of prophecy and the rose that blossoms on the earth.
Yeah, if you've never really thought of it much, we do have all those candles on the altar. We bring, we've even now started bringing the little
torches
over to
the gospel.
The gospel's read. And we don't need more light because the sanctuary is lit pretty well.
Yeah, we've got floodlights.
It wouldn't do, the candles aren't adding any useful, practical light.
Not anymore.
But we still leave them there because of what they represent.
Yeah, absolutely. The light. So when you look at the candles, when the cross is carried in procession, it's always flanked by two candles, or should be flanked by two candles. So one server carries the cross, two other servers carry the candles next to the cross, because the cross is Christ's banner. It's his sign of victory that we are following. And so that comes in and is placed where it gets placed. The candles situated around the altar. For the celebration of Mass, you're supposed to have 4 or 6 candles, but at least 2. So it's an interesting way that it's like 4 or 6 candles, but 2 at the minimum. So what I do for daily Masses, we have 4 candles lit. For feasts and solemnities, we have 6 candles lit. So every Sunday, every Holy Day, anytime the Gloria is sung, there will be 2 more candles lit to highlight that solemnity. And then the Gospel, when the Gospel is proclaimed, the candles are held at the ambo because that is Jesus speaking directly to us, and we recognize his presence. And then sometimes candles are carried even at the Eucharistic prayer. You'll see candles come out and torches being held and incense coming out when the host is lifted or when the chalice is lifted. We do that on the big Masses here, like Christmas, Easter, Holy Thursday, things like that. So the candles really do symbolize something important.
Yeah.
The light of Christ, recognizing Christ's presence. Interestingly enough, then, a 7th candle is lit on the altar when the diocesan bishop celebrates. So the candle represents that he himself is the presence of Christ, which is why the bishop is able to give the greeting, "Peace be with you," at the beginning of Mass. The priest always says, "The Lord be with you," and with your spirit. But the bishop says, "Peace be with you," which was the Lord's greeting at Easter. So when the bishop walks into that room and says, "Peace be with you," there is the presence of Christ.
Wow.
And in fact, there always used to be a server that would carry that little candle, like on, one of those little Ebenezer Scrooge kind of candle thingies. We called it a bougia. It was a little candle that there would be a server standing next to the bishop holding the candle because he was the presence of Christ, and so you've got to have someone following him around with his little candle.
I'm imagining some little poor boy following Bishop Lopes everywhere he goes, and how annoyed he would be at someone just following him. He's like, I'm just trying to do my grocery shopping. Get away from me.
Yeah, I don't think they did it in the grocery store.
It would be really funny to see Bishop Lopes. I can just see the look of disgust of him as a little boy following
Some little
him.
kid following him around with a candle down the market. Yeah.
I thought that was too funny. I should be crying.
Well, we don't use the bougia anymore. But we do light a seventh candle on the altar when the diocesan. He's not our diocesan bishop. He doesn't get a seventh candle.
It would be funny to have someone follow him around. Just don't say anything. Just have it happen.
Oh, Jonathan, you are in a mood today. Well, I'm glad we tickled your funny bone. Oh, so speaking of liturgy, that's kind of what we've been discussing this week.
Yeah, we kind of teed it off.
Yesterday we got started with kind of liturgy in general. What is it? Today I thought we would just, kind of talk about liturgy, preparing for the liturgy.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mass is like the liturgy of liturgies, if you will, because yesterday we reminded folks that the liturgy is the work of the people, but more so the work that God does in his people. Mm-hmm. So it's the work of our salvation. That's the work that is being done. That is the liturgy. And that happens on the cross and in the death and resurrection of Jesus. So when we participate in the death and resurrection of Jesus, we are participating in the liturgy, and the liturgy is the Mass. So preparing for the Mass. How do you prepare for the Mass, Jonathan, as a father and husband and baptized, confirmed Christian man?
Not as well as I should.
Ideally, how do you prepare for the Mass?
Ideally. So when I'm on top of things and life's not too hectic, I really like the first thing, before even getting there, doing anything, I like knowing the readings ahead of time.
It's not a surprise.
It's not a surprise. If my mind starts to wander...
Which does happen.
Oh, it happens. Yep. Or if my kids are starting to wander.
Which do happen.
And so I want to know what to expect. And then also to be able to reflect on it. And so the homily can bring a new perspective. Sometimes it reinforces a perspective, or maybe it takes it deeper. But to kind of pray through at least the gospel, but knowing the other readings, because they kind of have, they're connected. They put them together for a reason.
And sometimes you don't, if you're just listening for the first time, you're not going to grasp it.
No.
One of the things that I like to recommend, especially to couples when I'm working with them in marriage prep, is I invite them in their couple prayer. Like when you pray as couples, maybe, I don't know if you pray every day as a couple, but maybe start every other day praying as a couple. And I recommend always taking the Sunday readings for their weekly prayer. So on Monday when you pray together, pray the first reading together. Wednesday, pray the second reading together. Friday, pray the gospel together. And on Sunday, go to Mass together. And you've already prayed through those readings. You've read them together. You've discussed them. You've sat with them for a while so that you get something more out of the Mass. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Mass isn't about getting something out of it, but boy, it's great when you do. But part of that is the preparation that you put into it.
Yeah. No, and it is, to be able to have wrestled with it or, contemplated it, prayed with it, you really do get a greater sense. Because you go in and you're like, I know this story.
Yeah.
And even if it's a story you've heard a million times, I can't tell you how many times I've read a passage and get something new out of it.
What is God saying to me today?
Right. And so that's the biggest thing is really preparing my head and my heart to receive the Word of God, because that all comes in the preparation of true receiving God Himself.
Right. So absolutely, that prayer is super important to pre-pray. When as a teacher, we're always, if you're going to teach something, you have to pre-teach it. Or if you're going to, if you're going to be going on a field trip, or if you're going to be going to something, and you haven't laid out the expectations to the kids, what's going to happen, how they're supposed to behave, what the, blah, blah, blah. And then when they don't live up to those expectations, you can't be all upset because you didn't pre-teach it. Mm-hmm. If you pre-teach what you're going to teach and then go revisit it at the end, you have a much greater retention rate.
Yeah, I think even just setting those expectations. At Mass, are you setting the expectations of trying to get something out of it?
Right.
Because if you do, you probably will get more out of it than if you just show up.
And you will get more out of it if you bring something with you. Mm-hmm. What am I bringing to this liturgy?
God, you do all the work.
It's your work. Liturgy, work of the people. It is the work that God does in his people. We are supposed to participate in that. So what am I bringing? And that was really a clarion call of the Second Vatican Council. Because I think that's how the early Christian communities started to worship. And then as time goes on and, just things happen and the way history unfolds, the work of the liturgy really became the job of the priest and the ordained ministers. And there were many. I mean, we started ordaining everybody under the sun. You had your priest, you had your deacon, you had a subdeacon, you had an acolyte, you had a lector, you had an exorcist, you had a porter, you just had the whole lineup. And so it was like that was someone else's job to do liturgy. The Second Vatican Council really encouraged everyone to have an active part in the liturgy. And that doesn't mean you're running around doing a bunch of stuff. That's not what it means. But it means that, no, I am here to bring something and to be actively engaged in my mind and my heart especially. That's what it means. It doesn't mean we're going to have more readers or more singers or more whateverers, but that I am going to engage my mind and my heart actively in this act of worship.
Well, if I'm not wrong,
I'll tell you if you are.
Even things like the responsorial psalm, which we didn't do pre-Vatican II.
No.
That has its roots back in the Jewish tradition, even of there was a response, and so there was that dialogue, if you will, where you were a part of the service,
right?
And so to bring something like that back, that goes back to the Jewish roots,
ancient,
where it's beautiful to be part of it, and because I've been to a pre-Vatican II Mass,
mm-hmm.
And
the gradual is done after the first reading.
Mm-hmm. And it's just there's not the back and forth. And you're
Correct.
there and you can still be engaged. But it is, at least for me, it's much more difficult to be engaged when I don't actually have a part.
Right.
I felt more like a spectator to something that's going on as to being a participant.
Yes. And I think that's part of my call even as a priest, that for me to pray, it helps me if I am actively doing something and to take that active role that the priest is called to do, that is almost necessary for my salvation and my entry into the liturgy. So preparing for the liturgy, of course, is knowing what for me as a priest, obviously knowing what the feast is, like what is this, how does it fit in with the calendar of the church's year, what are those readings, and what is the thread that holds them together. Like you were saying, the first reading and the gospel reading are always connected directly, and the psalm is usually connected directly to that first reading as like a response to it, or to the feast day. And then the second reading, if there is a second reading, it may or may not connect. Could just
kind of a bonus.
Could just be working through Paul's letters or Peter's letters or John's letters, whatever, the apostolic letters.
Because the second reading comes from the New Testament.
It does. The first reading comes from, we'll talk more probably, I'm sure, the Liturgy of the Word as we get to the Liturgy of the Word. But just prepping for Mass, I think that is getting your heart and mind ready. And, I think a big prep, too, is just not... St. Charles Borromeo, he commented, he in one of his letters or homilies to priests or something, he was talking about, you complain about not being focused at Mass and distracted and everything, but what were you just doing in the sacristy? Were you just chit-chatting around and gossiping and, engaging and carrying on, blah, 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 blah? you need to start silencing yourself there in order to get ready for. So in Charles Borromeo's day, silence was the rule of his sacristy. You did not talk in the sacristy. It was the place to prepare for what you were going to go do. So if you're, I know it's difficult sometimes to get families going, getting everything all together, but that's where some plan and some discipline really help, because if you're throwing everything together at the very last minute and rushing out the door and, wiping sweat off your brow as you're, charging down the aisle to find your cue.
Stop describing my family.
Maybe it's going to take you a while to settle. You're going to be into the halfway through the homily before you're settled, because it's crazy.
It is. And so part of that in the preparation is even just in the way you dress.
How do you get ready?
How do you get ready? Because that's, for me, especially in the last year, usually for feast days, I've always tried to dress liturgically, or for Advent or Lent, I wear my purple.
Yep, pink going to be this week, I'll bet.
Not pink, rose.
You're going to put your rose on?
Rose this weekend. Yep. I've got it ready.
Can't wait.
Sitting there ready for its second time.
Gaudete, Laetare, and Gemma Day.
Yep.
It's your little pink.
And so, dressing up for Mass, and I know that sometimes it's easier just to wear jeans and maybe throw on a polo or something.
Uh-huh.
And there's nothing wrong with that. However, if Mass is what we say it is, which is the source and summit of our faith, and it is encountering Jesus,
the wedding feast of the Lamb.
More than face to face, we are becoming one with Jesus.
Intimate.
It's intimate. Would you go see Pope Francis and just be like, I'm just going to wear like this? Or, you go to a company Christmas party. Are you just going to wear whatever, depending on what company you have? Maybe you would. But you don't. If you dress up for
special things.
And I don't like dressing up. I'm not one of those people that loves being in suit and everything else. But one, to set the example for my kids, this is important because I'm asking them to dress up.
Sure. But
two, if I'm wearing this, it's because of Jesus. It's not about me at all.
Right.
Because if it was up to me, I would be in the jeans and a hoodie. and that's okay. But when you elevate yourself, what your outward appearance is, that little bit of discomfort is actually a good thing. Because it lets you know, I am doing this for this reason, and it's important enough to do this. And even just being there, it sets me in the right state of mind, and I feel more prepared when I am dressed up like that.
What are you giving to your beloved? I want to make myself look good for you. That's what you're doing. It's not that God demands it or that God even expects it. But it is a sign of our respect, of our love, that we take care of how we present ourselves, and by dressing up and grooming yourself well, it is a sign of my devotion, my love, my encounter. And I do think it does help you to focus a little bit, because it's like, these clothes are not my runaround clothes. Mm-hmm. These are not my errand clothes or my, paint the garage clothes or something. These are my church clothes.
Yeah.
And that I comport myself. There's been studies. There are so many studies. I couldn't tell you how many studies there are on the benefits of school uniforms. Even in public school systems, there are some public school systems that require a uniform, because the uniform, the outwards, this changes the behavior and the mindset of, now what are we doing? So having particular clothes for a particular activity really does help a person get into what you are doing. And there are studies to support this, so this isn't something I'm just making up.
No, and it's just, if you want to elevate your faith, that is a very simple way.
Super simple.
That,
body and soul. It's not just externals. It touches the internal.
Oh my gosh. I could go on rants about what are external and internal, and to go into, we won't go into a rant.
We'll get into these things.
But it gets you prepared. You are dressing up for something important.
Yeah. Now occasionally you're not able to, whatever. But I think it should be the norm.
It should be the norm. And
it should be the norm.
If it's a daily Mass that you're waking up for at 6 a.m. and that's the only chance you have, and you want to get to that Mass, and
And maybe the daily mass is a more of devotional mass as opposed to the mass of the week. So I would say yes, whatever whatever you are going to or from, that's fine. Dress for that. If you got to put on if you're coming back from the hospital and you're in your scrubs and you're going to come in and come to mass,
Jesus appreciates that.
Absolutely. Sunday, unless it's you're between shifts or it's a tight connection. We try to make that effort.
Yeah.
So maybe tomorrow we'll talk about the priest vestments and the special dress that the priest wears just to get ready for the celebration of the liturgy and how that impacts the faithful.
Awesome.
All right. Have a great day. And if you see Our Lady and she asks something of you, don't go running the other way. Ciao.
Adios.